Hello, I'm Derek Gloudemans. I'm a research engineer at Vanderbilt University working on the I-24 motion project, and today I'm going to be talking about the coordinate systems that we use for the I-24 motion data. Okay, so our fundamental problem is that we are receiving object coordinates that come from cameras along the roadway, and that gives us information about where objects are in terms of pixels. So we know that this car is contained in a bounding box that's 200 pixels wide by 150 pixels wide, and it moved 200 pixels in half a second or something like that. And the problem is basically that that is not useful information for a traffic scientist out of the box. We need to transform that information into a coordinate system that has meaningful units and is along meaningful axes. So basically, our needs for our coordinate system are a low representation of the real world. Any coordinate system we use is going to be, a mathematical approximation of the real world, which is very complex and detailed. So there's going to be some error, but we want that error to be low. We want the coordinate system to have object locations and sizes and speeds and accelerations in meaningful units, such as feet or meters per second, etc. We want to decompose the object motion along meaningful axes. So we want the object's primary coordinate vector to be along the direction of the roadway, and the secondary coordinate vector to be perpendicular to the roadway, so to contain lane information. And then we need a series of transforms that can easily move coordinates from image coordinates to the meaningful coordinate system that we define. So I'm going to talk briefly about three coordinate spaces that we're using on I-24 motion. The first, as we talked about, is image coordinates, which are in pixels and are aligned with the Cartesian grid of pixels in an image. That grid is not really very useful because it doesn't come in meaningful units, it doesn't decompose object motion along a meaningful axis, and it doesn't give us a meaningful representation of the real world that allows us to do traffic science that we care about. But it is the form that our measurements come in, so we don't have to do any transform to achieve it. Let's talk next about world coordinates, which is going to be a coordinate system such as the state plane coordinate system or GPS coordinates. These are aligned on a Cartesian grid in meaningful units. So you can see in this image, the grid is basically the carpet squares. So we know that each carpet square is 2 feet by 2 feet wide. But unfortunately, this grid is arbitrarily aligned. So let's say we care about defining a path to the drinking fountain, and we want to make statements about how fast you're moving towards the drinking fountain. We don't have one of our axes well aligned with the drinking fountain, so we're going to have to do decomposition of our primary coordinate basis to get information about the speed in that direction. So the good things about the world coordinate system, it's a low error representation. We can precisely define where things are located in meaningful units. And we can define a transform, which we'll be using a linear transformation called a perspective transform or a homography to convert between image space and world space. But the object motion is not decomposed along meaningful axes. So you can see how this would present a problem in our case because the I-24 motion system is located in red. The X and Y axes of the state plane coordinates or the GPS coordinates are shown below. So not only is I-24 motion not really aligned with either of those primary axes, but the direction of I-24 motion roadway actually curves. So the component vectors of a motion for an object moving along the roadway will change as a product of where they are on the roadway, which makes doing traffic science with those coordinates very burdensome. So we want to define a third coordinate system, which we're calling the roadway coordinate system, where the primary axis is directly aligned with the direction of travel along the roadway, and the secondary axis is always perpendicular. Now, because our road is not a straight line, our primary axis is not going to be a straight line. It's going to be a curve. We're using a spline to represent that curve. And then the secondary axis is always going to be perpendicular locally to the spline. So that means that the coordinate system is not a Cartesian coordinate system where every fundamental unit direction is globally orthogonal to all of the other directions. Instead, it's only locally orthogonal. So if we move to this animation just to demonstrate, you can see if we have a curve that's moving through our world space, so GPS coordinates, as we move along that curve, both of the coordinates are changing, and the magnitude of the components, like the X and Y components, the magnitude of the change is different depending on which direction we're moving in. So we want to define a separate coordinate system, which is represented by the purple line for the primary coordinate and the blue line for the secondary coordinate, where the primary coordinate is essentially the line integral along the curve to a point, and the secondary coordinate is the perpendicular distance from that curve. So this roughly breaks down into distance along the roadway and perpendicular direct distance or lane position. So this coordinate space gives us all of our needs. It's low error, it has meaningful units, the object motion is decomposed along meaningful axes, and we can define a series of transforms to and from image coordinates where we receive our detections. So the way that we move between image space and world space is through a series of correspondence points, which define a homography. So we manually label all of the lane markings, over 10,000 points along the roadway, both in individual camera images and in aerial imagery that's very detailed. It has about half a foot of positional error at max. And we can use those to define a homography or a perspective transform, which is essentially a linear transformation between the two spaces, assuming that each of them is a flat plane. Now, this assumption obviously is not perfect. A road has crown. It may have slight elevation changes within a single camera field of view, but this is a relatively good assumption that gives us relatively low error. Then we move from world coordinates to roadway coordinates with a separate transform, which is basically we define a spline f as a function of the roadway coordinate, which returns the corresponding world or space coordinate in state plane coordinates. So we can reference that spline and use it to find the closest world coordinate, and then we can perform that transform in reverse, basically searching for the point along the spline that has the minimum distance to any arbitrary point within the world space. Okay, so this gives us a coordinate system. The roadway coordinate system has roughly constant lane positions along within our I-24 motion test bed. So in the westbound direction, from y equals 12 to y equals 24 feet is going to roughly be the innermost lane or the HOV lane. From 24 to 36 feet is roughly going to be lane 2. From 36 to 48 feet is roughly going to be lane 3. And then from 48 to 60 feet is roughly going to be lane 4. So the reason why we're doing things in feet is because the geometry of the roadway is roughly defined in feet. So we have nice clean units for the lane widths and for the units of travel along the roadway. Okay, so using those transforms, we're able to achieve a low error representation of the real world. We can take a point in our roadway coordinate system, find the corresponding point in image space, and then transform that point back into the roadway coordinate system. And we have less than a thousandth of an error of less than a thousandth of a foot of error on average. Our object locations and sizes and derivatives are all in meaningful units. We've decomposed our object motion into meaningful axes, and we can perform a set of transforms that moves between our coordinate systems. Okay, so that's all the information you really need to know if you just want to use the coordinate system. I'm going to dive into a couple more of the low-level details that we've had to solve to make this system work. So if you're interested in that information, you can stick around. Otherwise, you can get going with the data. Okay, so the first thing that we noticed is that even though these cameras are mounted on poles that are quite rigid, we found that over time, the points that we manually defined within a camera field of view became significantly misaligned with the actual roadway. So this shift happened over the course of a couple weeks. And the reason why this happens is something called the sunflower effect, where basically as the sun comes up, it starts shining on the pole and it heats up one side of the pole. And because of the differential heating, the two parts, or the sun-facing and the shade-facing side of the pole, expand differently. And that causes the pole to lean away from the sun. And that means that the place where the camera was pointed changes as the camera pole shifts. And so this results in, if uncorrected, over 10 feet of error in some cases based on if we use where we think the camera is pointed and we convert objects from the image space into the world space using the original transform. So we had to correct this by using an automatic homography re-estimation method to look for the lane markings continually in each camera field of view over the course of the day and correct for the motion of the camera. Using this method, we're able to reduce the error to about 0.33 feet, or a couple inches, which is pretty good. But if you're working with an older version of the data, for simplicity, we may have used an all-day best average homography, which is going to have somewhere on the order of 1.5 feet of error. So not quite as accurate, but a little simpler to understand. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the peculiarities of this coordinate system. First, you'll notice at one end of the coordinate system, the lanes seem to drift. They seem to get narrower. This is not an artifact. This is due to the fact that the lanes actually change width. They shift from 10 feet to 11 feet, or 12 feet to 11 feet wide in order to pass through a narrow bridge at one end of the I-24 motion testbed extents. So you may also notice some shifts. These are due to a slight misalignment in the aerial imagery. So the notion of where a point is actually a little bit ambiguous, because depending on the raster image that it's labeled in, it may have a coordinate that's about a foot off from where it's labeled in a different image. We decided not to correct for these shifts because they're relatively small, on the order of a foot at maximum. So the coordinate system origin is roughly located at Mill Creek, the most westbound point on the testbed, and the x-axis points in the eastbound direction, and the y-axis is aligned so that it's positive in the eastbound direction. We did this so that the x-axis units would be increasing with increasing mile marker. And initially we had thought that we were going to shift the x-coordinate so that the x-coordinate would exactly be the mile marker. So for mile marker 60, the x-coordinate would be 60 times 5,280 feet. Now, when we started to do this, we discovered that the mile markers are actually not spaced exactly. So the integrated distance along our spline coordinate system was different than the locations of the actual mile markers. So we realized that only one of the mile markers would have the exactly correct coordinate. So then we abandoned that idea and just decided that we were going to make our coordinate system relative to a single point. And if you want to rectify those coordinates with the mile marker system, we have the geometry of the existing roadway signage available in metadata, so you can find those things. Another interesting peculiarity is runout error. So because we are assuming, or because our primary coordinate is defined along the spline, which in this case is the yellow line, vehicles moving in the outside lane travel further than vehicles moving in the inside lane on a curve, but these two vehicles are assumed to have traveled the same distance because they start and end at a line that is perpendicular to the primary axis spline. Now, this error is going to result in only a very small difference in travel. You can see the equation over there, but it ends up being less than 30 feet of runout error over the course of the testbed because the testbed doesn't curve very much. If you are interested in extremely accurate distance traveled or speeds, you can perform your speed calculations by first moving vehicle coordinates into the roadway or from the roadway coordinate system into the world coordinate system, so state plane coordinates or GPS coordinates, and then you can integrate those derivatives to get your desired calculation, and that will not have any of this curvature-induced runout error. Another peculiarity of the runout error is that on a curve, if the left side of the roadway or the eastbound side of the roadway and the westbound side of the roadway were defined with a separate spline for each yellow line, then you would find that on a curve, the yellow line x coordinate would become misaligned between the eastbound and the westbound side. So the same x coordinate would correspond to two different points along the roadway because of the integrated distance along the curve. Instead, we use a shared primary axis, which is defined along the median or halfway between the two yellow lines. So this is again going to result in slight runout error between the actual distance traveled to reach the same x coordinate on two sides of the roadway. But again, this effect is very small, less than 30 feet. And then because we are defining our primary axis spline relative to the midpoint between the two yellow lines, the width of the median actually shifts along the course of the roadway. So here you can see lane markings are plotted in different colors per lane, and you can see there's a minimum width here because that is where the roadway crosses a bridge. So we perform a subsequent shift per side to ensure that each yellow line is given the coordinate of y equals 12 or y equals negative 12, depending on the side. Now that makes the math to use this coordinate system a little bit complicated. So we do define a coordinate system code repository, which makes shifting between coordinate spaces really easy. You just have to define a coordinate system object, load the data, and then it's a single line call to convert between spaces. One other peculiarity that you'll notice is that the coordinate system is not defined for the eastbound side of the roadway from about 0 to 4,000. This is because the coordinate system is defined using lane markings that we could identify both within an image from a camera and within the aerial imagery. When we were doing this, the striping was being redone on the eastbound side, so there's solid lines. There's not any meaningful geometric features to use for mapping between the two spaces, so we couldn't really define the correspondence points to define the homography for this portion of the roadway. And this is just one example of the idea that for maintaining a coordinate system over time, we're going to have to solve a lot of peculiar and complex issues because the roadway is restriped regularly. The aerial imagery is only taken every once in a while, and we really need our survey or our aerial imagery to be synchronized with the roadway striping in order to be able to define this correspondence. So that's just one of the challenges that we're having to deal with because we want to define this coordinate homography over a very long time. Okay, so to conclude, we defined a coordinate system that's a low error representation of the real world with object locations and sizes in meaningful units. We decompose the object motion along a meaningful axis where the primary direction of motion is the primary axis direction and the secondary axis gives the lane information. And we have an almost lossless series of transforms to and from image coordinates and into the roadway coordinate system. We made a bunch of decisions that we thought were the right compromise between usability and accuracy. And we think that we did a pretty good job. But if you don't like this coordinate system, you're more than welcome to not use it. All you have to do is this single one function call to move our data from the roadway coordinate system back into state plane coordinates. And then there's just a one function call to convert from state plane coordinates into GPS coordinates. And then you can use the data however you want. But we hope that you think that the roadway coordinate system is useful, and we look forward to your feedback on it. Thank you for your time.